Welcome back to the Storm Cellar, everybody. This is Brad. With me, as always, is Ray. And Ray, Timo Meier has,
What a game today.
oh my, 5 goals. This is for you. He would be the fourth leading scorer in goals on the Canadians in
After
18
one
minutes
game.
and 14 seconds of ice time today, sir.
It
How
was
you feeling?
outstanding. I've seeing that statistic just makes me laugh and laugh. And my Schadenfreude kicks in looking at that very, very quickly. I love seeing the misery for the Habs and looking at Timo Meier put up 5 goals. And he had so much time. He had most of the third period, or a good chunk of the third period, to get his sixth. And I was listening to the game while working, and it was amazing. The announcers and the crowd was going nuts for him. And I'm thinking, can you imagine if he put up 6 goals and instantly becomes the top scorer for the Habs? That's awesome.
I
I'm
don't know if
sorry,
it's a
I'm enjoying
contract
that a
year,
little
but
too much.
but I hope it is for you, Timo, because man, obviously
That's
that's something special, but man, that's
yeah,
fun to watch.
that's outstanding. Yeah, they were harkening back to 1976, the last time a player put up 6 goals. One Daryl Sittler of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who had 10 points that night. 10.
Wow.
And I believe it was against Boston,
Oh, that's
who
good.
is up next. I mean, I believe it was against Boston. I cannot recall directly, but 6 goals in a game. I mean, five in a feat. What a amazing, amazing night. So San Jose fans had a lot to be proud of. Choke on it, Habs. Cool. Well, what we are going to talk about is we're gonna reach out to our listeners and give them a situation. Now, normally, we were planning. This broadcast comes a day late,
3 days later.
and um, the reason why it's a day late is I slept through the broadcast time completely slept through, and I got thinking to myself, what would Rod do if any one of the players missed a practice because they slept through? And now I know that it has happened to some players throughout the years. These sort of things have happened, and it actually becomes news stories or whatever. Aside from the bag skate, that certainly I would be punished to do by Rod. How many games would I sit out? How many games do you think a player would sit for missing under Rod's coaching decisions?
That is an excellent question. The closest thing I have to compare to is here in New England is that's happened where New England Patriots players under Coach Bill Belichick missed practice because it was snowing, and they're like, "Oh, it's snowing, couldn't get to practice." And
Right.
I'm pretty sure that those guys got like a 2 or 3 day suspension because Bill's like,
Uh,
"It's New England, it snows. What's your point?"
yeah. This is we play in the snow. We like although yeah, I mean yeah. So that I just yeah. So I really blew it, and I'm thankful that you have decided to let it pass and not give me too heavy a suspension. But I'm just thinking, if it were to happen to any of the players, you thinking it's a game? Do you think it's what do you think? What do you think it is? Or a penalty or a fee?
Yeah.
Or do the players rule themselves in that
Kangaroo
sort of
court,
thing?
maybe. Yeah. I
Maybe.
almost subbed in. I almost called up Rorschach from the taxi squad.
Outstanding. Rorschach.
People
He
listen
would
are like,
have.
"Who's Rorschach?" Rorschach, for everyone, is Ray's very awesome dog. But I
Yes.
think he would do a fantastic job. He's not very conversational, but he's adorable. So
And he does have a Canes bandana that he'll wear every now and again, despite my wife's complaints, as she's a Leafs fan and she doesn't like him wearing the Canes gear. But we got it for him.
If they ever meet in the playoffs, we might have to have like a whole episode about Leafs versus Canes if that ever comes to fruition in the playoffs, because we can
And
we can get her on a mic and I'll just be like, go.
yeah, and it's entirely possible this season the way things are shaking out. But before we get into the standings and a look ahead, let's talk about some of the news that was most exciting for Hurricanes fans. We got some All-Star selections. Sebastian Aho and Mr. Anderson both going to the All-Star game, certainly deserving for the way that they have played, leading this team. The question, though, now becomes how many more Canes do you think should be in? Do we reference one Connor McDavid who says, is it really right that all teams in the league have at least some representation in the All-Star game? What's your take? What do you think?
So I heard McDavid's comments, and my first thought was, the more I hear him speak, the more I'm like, okay, this is another guy who I'm very impressed by his hockey and not by anything else.
Mm,
And I think I'm going to hold to that. Part of the fun of a All-Star game is it's a community thing, right? I mean, you know, do teams like the Sabres and the Habs and some of those folks have true All-Stars that are just having standout seasons? Not necessarily, but All-Star games are as much for the fans as they are for anybody. So
sure.
I, for one, am a fan of every team has at least one. And the way I differentiate that in my mind is an All-Star, like I said, an All-Star game for me is a community thing. It's for the fans. Players like to be want to be selected All-Star game, but that's not like the pinnacle of success, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
obviously being the Stanley Cup. And then if you really want to get down to who is the truly great, the All-Stars, the best, it's why we have a Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So I look at an All-Star game of a chance for everybody to be represented. Let's come together, have some fun. We're going to do some fast skating. We're going to shoot some pucks. We're going to hit the hardest shot. We're going to play a game. I mean, they're playing 3-on-3. It's not like this is, strictly supposed to be the best players playing 5-on-5 big time game. It's going to be a mostly non-contact series of 3-on-3 games. The Hall of Fame is where you can say, okay, now we're talking about not everybody's getting in. Only the truly greats are getting in there. And to me, that's the differentiation that maybe McDavid would disagree with me on
Right.
is, you know, the reality is that particularly in the pre-cap era, All-Star games would have been so boring because you would have
Oh,
had 8 or 9 teams represented because they had the money, right?
and that's
Small
it.
market
Yeah.
teams, you never would have had an All-Star. It just wouldn't have happened. Maybe you'd have one once in a blue moon. So I am a fan of having everybody represented. I love the fact that the Hurricanes got 2 because I know that there were years where we had people going who, if McDavid had his way, we wouldn't have had anybody. Somebody has to go. This is the best of what Carolina has to offer. We've had plenty of those years.
Yes.
So not only am I excited for those two, but my boy Svechnikov is on the list for last man in. So we need to keep voting. I think maybe tonight at midnight. So we need to vote him, and then potentially we'd have 3.
That would be, and certainly deserving. Svechnikov has been fantastic. It was certainly worthy. There's a lot of players in the Atlantic, in the Met, that have been left off the list simply for the reason of leaving space for um, players from the other teams. And you know what? I'm kind of with you. Having representation throughout the league, it's about the All-Star game has been always about promoting the league and I mean, I remember on the lean hurricane years that we had, how exciting it was to have at least one hurricane player on there and
Right.
playing close attention every single time they got on the ice. Same for the Whalers. You know what I mean? Like having Ron Francis jump out onto the ice, you know, it was great. It was exciting. You wanted to see them do well. You wanted to see them shine. And so, you know what? Yeah, and there's ebb and flow throughout the entire Like every team has highs and lows. It's very rare that one team is a perennial, continual, top of the league squad that is just jam packed. You know what I mean? That has an overflowing abundance of all stars on it. It's very rare that that happens. There's always trades, there's movement, there's,
Mhm.
free agency, the whole bit, right? So the ebb and flow is there. It's nice to make sure that it spreads throughout the league. And and let's face it, how exciting is the All-Star game? Really?
I honestly, I mostly am in it for the skills competition.
Yeah,
And then
there you
if I
go.
miss the actual game, I'm like, I'll YouTube the highlights. But
And I have to tell you, I'm always fearful and feel bad for the goaltenders, especially in this new format. Get a 3-on-3. I mean, that's why they play overtimes and 3-on-3. They're looking for goals,
yeah, it's
right?
going to be a shootout.
It's going to be an absolute shootout. And I remember the games back in the 80s, the All-Star games. You felt bad for the goaltenders because the score was 16-12, or you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
how many and those goaltenders just get peppered, right? It's not supposed to be, a firing range, right? You know what I mean? Like you want the goaltenders to shine, but how often does a goaltender, get the player of the game in an all-star thing?
Yeah, the no shutouts in an All-Star game, right?
Yeah, there aren't. So, look, I like the idea. I'm so happy Aho and Anderson are in. I sure would love to see Svetch make it, but I also understand Connor McDavid's side too.
I totally get where he's coming from. Um, you don't want to reward somebody who is just mediocre, for example. But when I think All Star, I'm in my mind, I'm kind of thinking who is each team's MVP,
Yeah,
right? And that
yeah,
necessarily is not going to be a high scoring person. It's going to be somebody on that. Every team is going to have somebody that the fans can look at most likely and say, at least we have that guy.
yeah, yep.
And to me, that's your All Star. I mean, that's the guy. Is he among the best in the league? Maybe not. Is he the guy who is anchoring your team, bringing everybody, keeping hope alive? That's what it's about.
100%, 100%. And speaking of Connor McDavid, who I don't know how it came about. I really need an explanation because there's no one in Edmonton who would ever consider trading Connor McDavid. They lived through trading Wayne Gretzky. They do not wish to relive that again. However, there is smatterings of chatter throughout, social media talking about what Connor McDavid is worth in a trade. And I'm thinking to myself, who's talking about trading him?
Eh,
Is this just conjecture and everyone saying, "Hey, let's have some fun and see what would you give up to get Connor McDavid?" You know what? I tell you, this is going to be maybe a little bit shocking. Kale McCarr. What would you give up for him? And
Yeah,
even
another goodie.
another really goodie and more rare than anything because he's a defenseman and unbelievable skill, otherworldly talent. What would you give up for him?
Yeah, that kid is straight sick every time you watch him play.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, to back up just half a step, I feel like it's almost like when we've seen like with the Vander Kane and a few other people like, oh, the Hurricanes are in on this guy. And I'm like, no, they're not. What Don Waddell said is, we'll keep our options open to see if
Hmm.
we can improve the team. That's his standard answer. That doesn't mean he's in on a guy, right? But
Yeah.
definitely across Twitter and Facebook, I've seen this pop up. This like, you know, well, to get Connor McDavid, you're going to have to give up like two top liners, maybe three. A top pair defenseman and a prospect. And my
Easily.
response has been the only teams willing to do that are teams that are not in contention. Is Carolina going to give up, I don't know, Aho, Svet, Slavin, and Jarvis? No, because
No.
what makes them good, what has put them fifth in the standings almost at the top of the league, is that they are a team. What makes the Oilers not work is because they have two guys and an AHL team.
Yep.
So if you're going to give up your first couple, your most of your first line and your top D pair and a prospect, well, you just hamstrung yourself. If you're Florida, you're not taking that deal. If you're the Leafs, you're not taking that deal. So even if the Oilers could move him or Draisaitl, I mean, you could choose either of those guys. I mean, they're both like 54 points. It's ridiculous.
100%. Yeah.
Even if you decided, I'm going to be the GM who is either going to be run out of town or the great saver of the Oilers. I'm going to trade one of these guys. You cannot get what he's worth from anybody, because the teams that have it are not going to want your price, because that's going to break down what they've built and what they're successful with. And if you're going to just do it and say, okay, well, I'm looking at the standings. Los Angeles, they're middle of the table. Well, okay, but are their first and are their top line and top D and prospect is not going to be as good as a Hurricanes, a Colorado, a Rangers, a Florida. So you can't win. There's no reason to do it. The only thing you can do is hang on to him and try and build pieces around him. And that's what the Oilers, they have the two top scorers in the league, and they are clearly need to be in rebuild mode.
Isn't that strange? Isn't that strange?
I like it. I don't watch NBA. I think you're an NBA guy. You're a Raptors guy.
I am.
I don't watch the NBA in part, Ray, because especially with the players having the power to basically choose to make their own all-star teams, right? Where like three guys are like, we're just going to go to Miami and just beat everybody.
Yep.
In the NBA, you can get a LeBron James and go from last place in the league to a contender.
Yep.
By getting a player. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
I like the team aspect of the Hurricanes and the Florida and the Tampa Bay. These teams are at the top of the charts because the whole team from top to bottom is pretty darn talented. And as there's attrition and as that they're bringing up new guys and they're bringing in people that are really good talents. I don't want to watch one great as much fun as it is to watch McDavid and Draisaitl highlights. I find Oilers games overall to not be exciting. Because if those two guys get shut down, the Oilers are almost certainly going to lose, and it's going to be kind of a boring game. And if those two guys are on fire, well, I can catch that in YouTube in 7 minutes at the end of the night.
It's funny. There are a couple of things when you're talking about the Oilers. To me, if the Oilers had solid, reliable goaltending, and I'm looking at a guy, could you imagine, I don't know, Carey Price on an Oiler squad? Someone who could backstop, and I say, you look at the LA Kings, Jonathan Quick is being discussed out there. Guys that have won Stanley Cups, super talented, can carry the load and stuff. If you have an unbelievable goaltender to drop into Edmonton, because Mike Smith, good as he is a little bit on the old side. Koskinen is not enough. Not enough. They have a Skinner there as well, and they're not the number one goaltender that you need to carry the load. And so they need a goaltender. And I think if they could get a goaltender, that's going to be their focus. What goaltender are they going to go after and give up to carry the load and at least maybe share the work with Mike Smith?
Right.
Because I think Smith is coming up on the end of his contract, right? So they're going to be looking for somewhere. But here's the other thing. I don't think McDavid or Draisaitl come out of Edmonton at all until free agency.
Oh, I totally agree. Because even in your situation, in your scenario, if you're going to get that top tier elite goaltender from a team,
yep,
you're not going to get first line guys in a first pair. You know what I mean?
No.
If you're getting that kind of a goaltender from somebody, you're going to get extra. Like, don't get me wrong, you're not going to get junk for one of those guys, but you're going to get that key piece or that talented forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if Colorado like had injuries or something, and you could do like Makar and maybe Kemper, who's been this year,
Off and on. Yeah.
something like that, maybe that would work. But you're not going to also get prospects, nothing, in my opinion, nothing that high. The cost would just be too high, right?
There and the cost is so high for players like McDavid, for Makar, for Draisaitl, for you look at all of those unbelievable players. The cost is so high that teams will just refuse to eviscerate themselves in an effort to get that one
Right.
super all world, all galaxy player like Connor McDavid. And look, his name carries a lot of weight. Make no mistake,
Totally.
making a trade, I can see teams eviscerating themselves to get him just for the hype. That will sell tickets. That will sell,
A lot of merch, a lot of
a
jerseys.
lot of jerseys, a lot of whatever. It's like a printing press for your money. You know what I mean? Like having him a part of your team, you just print the money out. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
that's the way it would
Right.
go. But can you watch your team? Is your team going to be able to survive such a decimating loss of talent that you would have to give up for someone as great as McDavid? I
Right.
don't
And
think.
I don't think the Oilers want to trade him. I mean, this is
No,
all internet
no.
conjecture.
They lived through Gretzky,
Right. And,
and
and even
everyone
if they
hated it.
did, they would be their own example for why nobody should pick him up.
Yeah,
Because if you have the top two scorers in the league and far and away above everybody else, and you're sitting down in the standings at 20th, you're kind of the example of like why you shouldn't eviscerate your team. That's a great word to use to pick up either of those guys,
yeah,
because it doesn't work. Because we saw Winnipeg in the playoffs last year. I think, was it the third game? I think they shut out McDavid. I think the first two games, like they get
yes,
a point,
yeah. Not a
and they
single
weren't
point.
close.
No, no, it wasn't close. And you know what? I mentioned it twice now. I've been thinking about it. The reason why the Oilers were able to trade Gretzky and why they can't trade Connor McDavid now. You look at Gretzky and the Oilers of the 80s. Gretzky, Yari Curry, Mark Messier, Glenn Anderson, Paul Coffey, Kevin Lowe, Grant Fuhr, Andy Moog in net. They had an all-star team, and they
And the Cubs to
could,
prove it.
and they did. And when a team came along and said, we've got something, we can trade Gretzky, and the Kings came along, they were able to make that trade. And wouldn't you know it, the Oilers did go on to win a Stanley Cup after Gretzky left, under the watchful eye and leadership of one Mark Messier. So look, the situations are completely different. Yeah, McDavid is this millennia's Wayne Gretzky, no question. They can't go down that same aisle. They don't have the talent underneath to survive that. And there's not another team in the league that would be willing to give up so much.
Absolutely. And just to throw it out there, that Gretzky trade, one of the things LA sent to Edmonton was former Hurricane Marty Jelena,
Yeah.
whose stick I bought for
Oh, did you
Christmas for
get it?
myself. I
Good
did.
for
I bought
you.
I bought a game used Jelena, and today I was cleaning my house. Today I found my game used Paul Coffey.
Beautiful.
I'm so happy.
Beautiful.
You have no idea.
Jelena was a big, I loved Jelena. In fact, he scored the series winning goal. Was it against
Toronto. If
Toronto?
it's what I'm thinking of, because I was gonna
Yeah.
say don't bring his name up around Carolyn. She might hit me.
She's in the other room. I don't think she's listening. I will survive the night.
I was
Knock
on
on wood.
Cape Cod and was watching OT, and Marty Jonah took, I think, like a knee down half clapper and in the net, and
Yeah.
I screamed.
Oh, I
Luckily, it
lost
was
my
October. There was
mind.
nobody else in the Cape, but
I lost my mind. It was positively brilliant. Just amazing. So
love
yeah,
that guy.
I mean, Martin Jelena, uh, just love him. Loved his effort with the Hurricanes. We should move along because we've got things to talk about, perhaps. And oddly enough, we're talking about it, but the question is, do you talk about it? We're talking about the blowout, the stinker, the big, humongous egg that the Hurricanes laid at home, getting blown out 6-0 by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, I knew in my heart, woe be unto any team that is playing the Carolina Hurricanes following that unbelievably terrible game, because you knew the Hurricanes would rebound, and they did, and they beat the Canucks handily, outclassed them, won the game 4-1. The question to you, sir, is it right, or not necessarily right? How do you handle the stinkers? How do you think the team handles the stinkers? How do you think Rod handles the stinkers? Do you spend hours on it and rub the noses in it and say this cannot happen again? Or is it the other way to handle things, where you simply turn the page, you expunge it from your brain cells, memories, and you move on, knowing that you are not as bad as what those 60 minutes showed? What do you think?
So this reminds me a lot, Ray, of going to go back to 2005 now.
Ooh, way back.
Way back, November 12th to be exact, against the Atlanta Thrashers, and the Hurricanes got just pummeled 9-0.
Boat raced.
And that was
Ugly.
after around, I think they had gone like 9-1, 10-1 in the previous. They had I think they lost 2 games in October and then went on a hot streak, and then they lose that one to the Atlanta Thrashers.
Oof.
In my mind, I don't think Rod is the kind of guy to dwell on things. I think Rod is gonna, you see his post game locker room speeches. I mean, the Canes have been really
Aren't
good
they
about putting
great?
those out.
Oh my gosh, I
I
love
think
seeing.
Me too. And I think Rod's the kind of guy who's like, we're just going to put this behind us, focus on the next opponent, which is exactly what they did. They went out and they did the Canucks what they should have, and they won 4-1, I think it was. That being said, I think that kind of game is good for a team, especially a young team like the Hurricanes,
Yeah,
later in the season, because when it comes to playoff time and you got to dig deep, Rod's going to say, do you remember when Columbus just came into our house
and
and
gas.
just
Yeah.
took it to you, right? They just went ham, 6-0. There was nothing you could do. You were out of that game straight out of the gate. And I think Rod is the kind of guy he's not going to belittle it, because if you hammer on it now, it's not impactful later.
Yeah.
Right? If you kind of let it go and say, hey, shake it off, we're better than that. We came out, hey, next game 4-1, then it's on to the Bruins. And then when you go and bring that game up later, it has some impact. Do you remember when these guys embarrassed you? Well, XYZ team we're playing in the playoffs now just embarrassed you. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You
know what? It's the Hurricanes got a healthy reminder that this is the NHL, and they're really outside of the team that shall not be named. Any team can come in and do it upright and whoop your ass. And pardon the language. Just beat the holy crap out of you. All 200 feet of ice, just up and down the ice, and just whoop you. And it can happen. Are you ready? Are you prepared? That's why you bring a full 60 minutes. And I have to say, I kind of felt bad for young LaFontaine, who is the young goaltender, signed up out of college and quickly thrown in to fill in for Anderson. Gives up a goal right away. It was tough. Tough. That's a tough spot to be in. And there's really not much more you can say. I think I'm excited to have him aboard as a Hurricane. I think he's going to bring some stability between the pipes, which is what you want. You want it to be nice and healthy and deep in that position. And I look forward to seeing him in the future. I absolutely do.
Same.
It
Sarah Sivian,
really stunk.
Sarah from The Athletic had a great article. She had gone back. She talked to some of his coaches from the WHL, college coaches, because he originally was at Michigan, was basically third on the depth chart, went
Wow.
back to the W, then got picked up by Minnesota. And the coaches basically was like, he let in 2 breakaway goals. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Said that he didn't think the kid would get shook by that at all, which I think is great. I was a little worried about him mentally, but I feel like Rod must have had a pretty good sense of where this kid's at, because I think the kid did great. I mean, he let in, 2 goals on 3 shots, I think it was, which isn't the best outing.
No.
But you were clearly out of that game. The defense
No.
wasn't clicking the off. Nothing was going right.
Nothing was going right.
You got your first NHL stop, and you just go, okay, well, I stopped 1 out of 3, and the other 2 were breakaways. Like,
what do you
that
do?
could have easily been Anderson, or
no
Ronta.
question.
So
no question. And they've had stinkers in their careers as well, where they just don't have it. They're not up to snuff. And so it's one of those lessons that you learn. And I couldn't be happier that it is Rod Brindamore who is the coach in this situation for young LaFontaine, for the same reason why I loved the way Jarvis played. And then, all of these players coming up through, where he knows how to handle the young guys. He knows how to reach them and speak with them and get the most out of them. And he's not, I mean, there's no way. And one of the best parts about that 6-0 laugher was how quickly the players went back to LaFontaine at the end of that game to make him feel like part of it and say, hey, you know what? Good job. You did your best. Tough one tonight. No worries. There's nothing against you on this.
We'll do better. Yeah.
Like we'll do better. You'll do better. Don't worry about it. Right. Like they were there. That camaraderie's there. And he's going to, I mean, every player when their first time when they step on the NHL ice, they either dream they're going to score 3 goals or they're going to get a shutout in their opening game. I mean, that's what they wish. Doesn't happen like that for everyone. It's just the way it is. He's going to
can't all be David Ayers.
No, exactly. Well played. Well played. And so look, and we were playing the Blue Jacks. If it was the Leafs, there's no way that. Anyway, never mind.
You bring up a good point. They assigned LaFontaine directly to the taxi squad, which does 2 things. It gave the Hurricanes the backup they needed. His work permit came in that day. Then he was all set to go. His work visa. Then he was set to go. It also allows the Wolves, the AHL affiliate, who is having folks, if you don't pay attention to the AHL, if you think the Hurricanes are having a good season, the NHL network is doing some free nights where they're showing AHL games. The Wolves, the Hurricanes affiliate, are tearing it up.
Nice.
So it also, we had 4 goalies on injured, which is why they pulled LaFontaine mid-semester. But it also gives the Wolves Lions back to like, hey, you got your guy. You can take a run at the cup.
Yeah.
So it gives both franchises stability, right? Because Ronta's skating again. So hopefully he'll be on the bench for tomorrow.
Knock on wood.
Which is, and I can't say this enough, the biggest game of the year for me thus far.
No question.
Living in Boston, my Hurricanes flags are on the front porch. They are flying as of today.
Attaboy.
If we lose this game, I might have to call in a sick to work on Wednesday.
Yeah, because you won't.
It'll be rough.
It'll be vicious, won't it? Yeah, I can understand.
They are as good taking as giving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No
so
question.
It's a back and forth. But if they can win
understand.
this one for me, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, you call in a favor. We'll call Rod and say, hey, you want to jack the guys up a little bit and get them all fired up extra for this game against Boston. Not that they need any extra help to get fired up for Boston, because Canes and Boston, they like to throw down.
There's some bad blood lingering there still.
It's very healthy, and unfortunately, the birthday boy who was lighting it up on Saturday on his birthday, bar down. What a beautiful goal that was! Holy!
Oh
crap.
My gosh, that was gorgeous.
Natchez loved it. that is the example I spoke about, how much I enjoy watching him play. It's that shot that is the perfect example. Uh, Only slightly shadowed by how great Svetch was on the exact same play, who took a big hit and bounced off like the guy
Like a
wasn't there.
brick wall. The
It
guy
was
hits Fetch, and Fetch like bounced off like,
and
oh,
kept
I'm sorry.
moving
Did you need to get through here?
in stride. It was beautiful. Svechnikov was awesome. Little touch. He deserved the apple there with that little puck touch that he gave to Natchez. But Natchez, just a beautiful snapshot that was so quick and bar down. Oh, just beautiful.
Goal
Just
number
beautiful.
8, his 100th. I think it was his 100th goal
On his
on his
birthday, his
birthday.
23rd. Beautiful. Now it stinks that he's now in the COVID protocol, and he was the last one, right? He was the only guy on the team that hadn't been on the COVID protocol. Is that not correct? I believe
There's
he
a few.
managed to
I think
dodge
there's
it.
like 7 total.
Is there?
But
Okay,
I think that's what I saw on Twitter today. But it's Twitter, so Twitter could be
he used to
100%
say,
wrong. But
yeah, it was crazy. So losing him and not having him in the lineup for the Boston game, it stinks. But you know what? The Hurricanes have proven in the past, next man up. We've got nothing to fear. You know what I mean? Like someone's going to step up and carry the load as always, and we're looking forward to it. We certainly want to see a victory over the Bruins. Like someone to plant Marchand into the boards. So maybe
I'm
Brady
down with that.
Shea, just line him up and put him on his keister. That'll be nice. I'd appreciate that. And it would be a big 2 points. And this is one of those statement games because the Bruins, again, no slouches. Are there any slouches in the East outside of the team that shall not be named? Honestly, like
Not really,
honestly,
but the
it's
Bruins are
so
far
tough.
enough back. You should win.
You
You know what I
should
mean?
win.
It won't be easy, but they're definitely a second tier team this year. The Canes should win this game.
They
And
should.
just a correction on myself, Marty Natchez 100th point, not goal, which I
There you
should have
go.
known because I was like, man, that's like 20 goals a year. That's not happening.
Yeah, but you know
100th
what?
point for Marty.
It's a great birthday gift to himself, and he certainly earned it. The Bruins, they're a tough bunch.
They've got some real skill. The nice thing about the Bruins, if I'm trying to be objective, is they've gotten away from that big bad Bruins slow, big hitting pylons, which the people in Boston still want to see. Like I still hear it on talk radio. I still see it in comments. They were like, oh yeah, but does he hit? It's like, that's all you guys want is just, you don't care if you win games. You just want to see hits. That's like
hits and stuff.
It's like the people go to NASCAR only for the crashes.
Yeah.
Which it's fine. If that's the way you want to enjoy hockey, more power to you.
Yeah, you win games with goals scored, not number of hits in the game. As important as the hits are to the tempo and the feel of the game. There's no question.
Yep. And Boston has put together a squad that can put in some goals.
Yep.
I mean, they're a plus 21 on goal differential for the year. They're sitting at 22-11. So, like I said, they're a second tier team this year. They'll be a playoff team.
No question.
I don't think they're a cup contender. Rask is now back with the team. So, the Bruins are I think it's one of those games, nothing against Vancouver, but I think if you match up well against Boston, play against Boston, that should give you some idea of what the playoffs might look like for the Hurricanes.
And Rask has had the Hurricanes number in seasons past. So do you think he gets the start? Has he been tapped as the starter?
The last I looked, honestly, Ray, he was going to be in Providence. I don't know if they've called him up at the big club. I will look up that in just a moment.
Because, again, there's you like the John Wick movie. I think I can go out there and say I love John Wick.
I do.
And I think of Baba Yaga. The phrase that they had, and Rask was one of those guys that was like a Baba Yaga to the Hurricanes. You know what I mean? Like he just seemed to have their number. What is, it's hard to say. I can't put a finger on it, But certainly Rod is going to have them fired up and ready to go. And I would love to see another victory here. Keep us on a good winning pace as we keep on throughout this,
Absolutely.
because where we're at, again, these are one of those games in hand that we have, and we need to. I'd like to see us at the top of the Met, and the only way to do that is pick up wins, and so we gotta win this one, no
I'm
question.
Yeah, absolutely. Big game. Can't wait for it. Um, Real quickly, I thought we talked just standings a little bit for just a few minutes. I think we've all been so used to being, at kind of the top of the league. Hurricanes are in fifth right now, but
Yeah,
we have, 3 games in hand on Florida, 5 games on hand in hand on Tampa Bay, 4 games in hand on the Rangers, and we're, not more than 5 points behind any of those teams. So
amazing.
if you win those games in hand, you're in good shape. But I was like, I just want to know from a playoff, because would we love to be the first? I don't care about the President's Trophy personally, but I'd like to be
No.
number one in the East at least, just for matchups. I would,
Yep.
because if you're first in the East or second in the East, you're not playing Florida, you're not playing Tampa Bay in the first round. Let somebody else deal with that headache. And
Yes.
right now, the Hurricanes are sitting second in the Metro, behind the Rangers, who they should easily catch at this point.
No question.
And they are 11 points up for wild card 3 with 5 games in hand. So the playoff picture looks, you can't guarantee it. You never know what's going to happen. That
No, you
you
don't.
could tank and miss the playoffs. But if things keep going roughly the way they're going, it looks like you're going to be in the playoffs, and then it's a matter of just, who are you playing in the first round, and
Yeah.
then from there anything can happen. I mean,
No
certainly when the
question.
Hurricanes won in 2006, they were one of the last teams in, right? It
No
was
one
that bubble
expected it.
hockey, and then you
Exactly.
kind of run with it. So
I love where we've been. I mean, you look at the effort throughout the team to get us in this position. The next man up. We've survived the COVID misery where we lose out some of our best players and still pick up wins, still pick up points. Some very difficult road trips that we came through beautifully on. And you just know, again, in Rod we trust, right? I mean, we've said it over and over again. He's going to have the ship right and tight and ready to go, and the guys are playing well. Let's just keep this momentum going. I it's funny, talk about this. I'm so glad the Olympics aren't happening,
same.
because on seasons like this, when the team is playing well, when you have momentum, you do not want to stop. You do not want to take a 3-week break, because at the end of that 3 weeks, it's like starting another season
Yep.
all over again. And I'm so glad that it's not happening. So glad.
Me
As
too.
much as I love the Olympics, and I love NHL players in it, because it is all world, some of the best hockey, amazing players that you will see ever, ever.
hmm
And you just don't get these opportunities very often. So look, I understand what we're missing out on, but as a Hurricanes fan, I'm being selfish.
Same. I'm waiting to
Why
see those games start to be the postponed games start to be rescheduled during that
into
Olympic
that
time slot.
spot?
I'm watching the
Exactly.
calendar every day, saying, can we get these games on the calendar so that we can start making plans? Because I don't like. I'm with you. I would much rather see, even if it's a limited schedule.
Yeah,
Because we don't have that many games to make up for 3 weeks worth. There'll be
not a
one
lot
game, maybe 2 games a week at most.
at
Um,
most.
but
Yeah.
but I would much rather see that than see, because it's not just that the guys aren't playing hockey together, but once those guys go to their national teams, it's a different system, right? There's different expectations. It's you have to change your mindset about how you're playing the game, because
Yeah.
an international team is not playing Hurricanes hockey. They're playing
No.
Finnish hockey, or they're playing, Norwegian
Exactly.
hockey. So
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that shift of mindset, like you said, when you come back, you almost have to take a reset. So I for one, as much as it's fun to see them play, I like watching the amateur players in the Olympics. I always did.
Yeah. You
So
know what? There's a lot. That's an opportunity that some players will never get ever. And I'm going to selfishly throw this out there. He hasn't been with the team for a long time, but for Team Canada, Eric Staal is on Team Canada.
He's looking good in Iowa, man. He's putting up points.
He a Hurricane forever in my eyes, no matter where he went. He will always be a Hurricane. That's just it. The fact that he's on Team Canada is exciting. I'd love to see him do well. Thunder Bay boy, just like his brother. Just awesome. So happy to have that.
Best of luck to
That's
him.
really
Absolutely.
best of luck to all of them. I hope they can all go over there, put hockey on display, play well, enjoy it, and then come home safely without a COVID nightmare and stuff like that. Let's have that go. Again, knock on wood. Let's hope that it goes. Let's hope that it goes well. Again, we're really hopeful. We're crossing our fingers for Svechnikov.
Yep, tonight's tonight at midnight.
This is
the end of the voting. You can vote 10 times a day. So I'm gonna try and get this out tonight, which won't give people a lot of time, maybe an hour or two. But if 10 votes for Svech counts. 10 votes for Svech.
Every minute counts. Get those votes in, and we hope Svech can make it to the All-Star team. There's really not much more to say.
Just one thing.
Yes. Go Canes.
Go Canes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We would do our best to answer anything hockey-related. You can reach us by email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.